Hi, and welcome to the show. You may remember a while back we reported on a story about about school administrators who framed a student as they put a vape pen in the child's backpack. We've heard audio recordings. We've heard different sides of the story. This was back in March of 2023. Now there's new details in this case. It's not just the principal that was arrested in this case. It was this person. His name is Andrew Gonzalez. He works with the CCISD Police Department. Now he's arrested. Two officials have been arrested, and they're charged for framing a student. We'll raise some common sense in just a minute, but first, let's take a look. Let's look at this full story.
More local news tonight. New details after two former school officials were arrested after being accused of framing a middle school student with a THC vape pen.
And we've learned that former CCISD police officer Andrew Gonzalez was arrested on Saturday morning for what police say was his part in that incident. He faces charges of tampering and fabricating physical evidence with intent to impair and official oppression. Nueces County Sheriff J.C. Hooper tells 3 News that Gonzalez bonded out that same day. He's accused, along with ex-Hamlin Middle School Assistant Principal Amanda Lee Corona, of planting a vape pen in a backpack back in March of 2023. Corona was arrested and charged with crimes in connection with that last week. She faces the same charges as Gonzalez.
But when's the trial happening? There probably won't be a trial. One person bonded while the other sits in jail. Their attorneys may sit there and say they got no comment. Well, here's what I would do if I was in these teachers' shoes. If I was in that person's shoes, and let me tell you, if I was in Gonzalez's shoes and they tell me put that vape pen, hell no. Hell no. Hey, take this vape pen and put it in the backpack. You will not get in trouble. Hell no. Get that shit away from me. You're gonna have a time of resoundance? Then I quit. They'd be like, okay. Why would he do it? He was just following orders. Well, and now if I was in that principal's shoes, I would look the other direction and say, maybe if I was in that principal's shoes, I'd be like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this because it could get me in trouble. That's one of the first things you should do, because if you're an assistant principal, your job is to help out kids and have them go to the other direction. It's not about locking them in the dark room and just sitting there saying, well, you're an ISS because this, that, and the third. It's about helping them find different ways. That's what made me who I am. That's what makes me the hometown hero of my community. Setting good examples. And what this principal did and what that officer did was setting a bad example in their community. Now, how do we fix this? We need to retrain staff members as well as other officers. If the police chief heard about this, then he would be like, well, because this incident, we need to retrain our officers so that this incident does not happen again. Letters will not even help. Because our tax dollars are going towards school police departments and school officers. And even safety. Like, all parents care about these days is zero tolerance and safety. Why can't Johnny read? Why can't Johnny read? It just never gets old when it comes to stuff like this. So really, what this comes down to is how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? Well, here's what we need to do. We need to retrain not just the assistant principals. We need to train assistant principals and other officers. That part, the assistant principal should be on the superintendent, while the officer part should be with the school police chief. And the other part of this is, like, if parents are concerned, they should address this immediately. Now, there was a recording that happened showing that it happened. We actually showed you the recording last week. And in it, you can hear them planning to put that vape pen in it and then accuse the student of having it, even though they would do it. So if I would have taken a vape pen and put it in, I saw it happening, and they saw me doing it, I'd be like, it was me, yes, I did it. I would resign, fess up my crimes, and do the time. Sitting there in handcuffs, charged with tampering with evidence, this, that, the third, and then saying to myself, well, I should not be doing this again because it is wrong. Every school district needs to take accountability for their own actions. You've got to learn to take accountability. What you need to do at this point is to say to yourself, maybe I should not be doing this ever again because that's where it can happen. And that's the example you might be setting to other school districts. They can go by this. When you choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. That means you take accountability for your actions, and if you do the crime, you do the time. That's exactly what I mean. It's exactly what I meant and exactly what I mean. All right, coming up, we're gonna have up next. There's more Project Baltimore happening. There's a lot of education news happening in Baltimore City, which includes scores and even a disabled student who does not have a ramp for a wheelchair. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Just weeks ago, we've been showing you some very bad examples of how Baltimore City is creating scandals to elude Baltimore City into thinking they are a good school system. We've seen how superintendents have resigned. We've seen how they would falsify records. We've also seen them falsify records to Project Baltimore, to where they asked for this, they filed a lawsuit, and then they got it, and it was blank pages. But now there's more cases that meets the eye. Tonight, we're going to show you some examples. We're going to continue showing some examples of how Baltimore City is creating these scandals to elude the public, as them saying we are a better school district than others, and that's why we create these scandals. First things first. They continue to face challenges by overall academic improvement. According to these stars right here, and as we're about to show you, it may be altered, it may not be. It probably depends on how all you look at it. And as Chris Pabst tells us, it may be altered or de-altered depending on how you look at it.
Department of Education earlier this week released when the Maryland State Department of Education earlier this week released the 2024 school report card, the results were met with a reserved optimism.
There's been progress there. Future policy matters will come from that.
Dr. Joshua Michael is the president of the State Board of Education. On Tuesday, Fox 45 News spoke with him about how to increase student academic success.
There's a lot more work to be done in improving school quality across the state.
Every year, the state releases the results of the state report card, which rates around 1,300 Maryland public schools by awarding a star rating. Here's how it works. A school receives points based off certain metrics, such as student academic achievement, academic growth, and graduation rates. Out of a possible 100 points, if a school earns 75 or more, it receives 5 stars. The fewer points a school earns, the fewer stars it receives based off this point system. And the 2024 data does show improvement. 91 schools throughout Maryland earned 5 stars, up from 85 schools last year. The number of 4-star schools also increased to 446, up from 409 in 2023.
We're also seeing significant declines in chronic absenteeism from 2 years ago to last year. So we're students in school, and that's a big piece of our report card as it stands today.
Taking the same data used by MSDE, Project Baltimore dug deeper into the numbers. We analyzed the data and compared our local school systems based on the average of how all of their elementary, middle, and high schools performed. We then assigned star ratings based on the same criteria used by the state. Here's what we found. When it comes to elementary schools, every school system in our area earned an average of 4 stars, except Baltimore City elementary schools, which earned on average 2 stars. Baltimore City middle schools also earned 2 stars on average, but so did Baltimore County middle schools, which fell to an average of 2 stars. We found most local school systems saw similar declines. Anne Arundel and Harford County middle schools earned on average 3 stars. Carroll and Howard County middle schools performed at the same level as their elementary schools, with 4 stars. Concerning high schools, Howard and Carroll counties maintained their average 4-star rating. The rest of the districts in our area earned 3 stars, including Baltimore City. But look at this score, 45.65. The cutoff for 3 stars is 45 points, meaning Baltimore City's high schools just barely outperformed their elementary and middle schools to earn 3 stars. Fox 45 News will continue to analyze the state report card results and press local and state education leaders on how they're using your tax dollars to improve public education. To see how your school performed on the state report card, head to foxbaltimore.com and click on the Project Baltimore tab. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
We're going to do that later in the broadcast. But there's still more to be looked at. But we still got a lot to catch up on since we've last looked into Project Baltimore last week. Now we're going to look into how the Maryland schools show improvement on state report cards prior to those stars.
Newly released.
Once again, Chris Pabst.
The Maryland State Department of Education on Tuesday released the state report card for the 2023-24 school year. More than 1,300 Maryland public schools received a rating from a low of 1 star to a high of 5 stars, which is based on school performance, such as student academic achievement, academic growth, and graduation rates. As a whole, Maryland schools showed improvement on the report card. The 2024 data show 91 schools throughout Maryland earned 5 stars, up from 85 schools last year. The number of 4-star schools also increased to 446, up from 409 in 2023.
I feel good about it.
Dr. Carrie Wright is the Maryland State Superintendent of Schools.
I feel good that we are that we're showing that level of improvement. I mean, I think we still got a ways to go. I'm not going to say that we've achieved what we need to achieve.
Baltimore County had the most 5-star schools in the state with 20, up 1 from 2023. In our area, Anne Arundel County and Harford County also had increases from 9 and 4 5-star schools to 11 and 7. Howard County stayed the same at 12. Meanwhile, Baltimore City and Carroll County each lost a 5-star school. Baltimore Polytechnic Institute is now the only 5-star school in the city, which is still 1 more than Carroll County, which now has 0 5-star schools.
So you see our recommendation.
But the way the state calculates how schools are rated may change.
I guess I want to say there's like a little bit of a disconnect.
During Tuesday's state board meeting, the board heard from a task force
I'll also share with you a timeline.
charged with offering recommendations to adjust Maryland's school rating and accountability systems.
There's other growth models that we could be using.
Wright's concern is that the STAR system does not match student achievement levels. For example, in 2024 in Baltimore City, 10.2% of students scored proficient in math, 27.7% tested proficient in English language arts, yet nearly half the schools, 63, scored 3 stars or better, while 81 earned 1 or 2 stars. The numbers are similar in Baltimore County, where last year, 19.3% of students scored proficient in math, with 41.9% scoring proficient in English. Yet 129 schools received 3 or more stars, while just 33 received 1 or 2 stars. Wright believes the rating system could be adjusted to more accurately depict student academic success, though she is not yet sure what those changes will be.
I'm feeling very positive about this, and I think that the superintendents are feeling very, very good about this. I think they're very hopeful that a new assessment system and a new accountability system is going to make a difference.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
I'm Mary Bubala. Thank you for watching. Here's another video for you to watch. Also,
Like we said before this, we'll look into more of this later in the broadcast. Up next, a first grader denied a ramp when he's in a wheelchair. Why would that happen? Stay with us. Think of this next case scenario. Pleading to your school board for a ramp for your child who's in a wheelchair. And they say yes, we'll get you that wheelchair. We promise you, we'll get you that wheelchair. We'll still get you that wheelchair. A year later, we'll get you that wheelchair. But then 2 years later, you find out that they have not done the wheelchair. So you plead to them again. Are you still getting on the wheelchair? They'll tell you yes. But you're so furious that it has not happened. The family you're about to meet in this next story were very angry. They've waited 2 years for a ramp for their son because he's in a wheelchair. And now they call Project Baltimore because they're pissed. So why would it take 2 years for them to build a ramp when they have it? Again, Chris Pabst.
Justin Lewis has been fighting for his son, Jameson, since the day he was born.
You know, I want him to feel like a normal kid.
9 years ago.
I'll never stop fighting for my son.
Jameson has a genetic disorder called CMT, Charcot-Marie Tooth Disease, where his hands, legs, and feet are in constant pain, largely confining him to a wheelchair.
He falls quite a bit because his legs give out.
Because the muscle tone is in your leg and you can walk.
He's not able to run and jump like normal kids, but he never gives up.
Yeah.
Jameson is in 3rd grade at Curtis Bay Elementary in South Baltimore. He loves the school, his teachers and friends.
They absolutely love my son.
Curtis Bay is his family's school.
I went to this school, my sister went to this school, my mom went to this school.
But there's a problem. Jameson cannot get to the 2nd floor of the school in his wheelchair. Curtis Bay was built in the 1960s. The building is not fully wheelchair accessible, but a Project Baltimore investigation has learned it could be.
Yes.
The Lewis family, for years, has been fighting Baltimore City Public Schools to install a wheelchair lift in the school. Project Baltimore has obtained emails showing that in November of 2022, more than 2 years ago, Melissa Broom, the Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs at North Avenue, emailed the family, saying the lift would cost approximately $132,000, and funding was identified. Then, in March of 2023, that same administrator emailed with great news, saying the lift installation is on schedule. The lift should be manufactured, shipped, and installed by Monday, May 22nd. 2023.
It's super frustrating. The wheelchair lift keeps getting pushed back and back and back.
The lack of a lift is impacting his education.
Absolutely. It's upsetting. We were told multiple times that it would be done this date, that date. I don't think they care.
It's upsetting because this email was sent nearly 2 years ago and the lift has not been finished. North Avenue would not allow Project Baltimore inside Curtis Bay Elementary to get video of the lift, but we were able to obtain pictures. This is what the lift looked like last week. Every day, Jameson is forced to look at this lift knowing it would greatly aid in his education. But despite his family pleading for nearly 2 years, City Schools has not completed it.
Really wish they would get on it and get it done. It's been long enough.
Since 2023, Curtis Bay has made accommodations for Jameson,
When you go back in, you do all your math work.
including relocating entire classes from the second floor to the first floor so he can attend. But that is not what the family wants. They want North Avenue to finish the wheelchair lift, which was funded by taxpayers and could be used by anyone in the school who needs it.
No, I get angry.
If you get angry,
Yeah.
would it make you happy if they completed it?
Yep.
Alright, we're gonna see what we can do about that.
Fox 45's initial request for an interview with City Schools was denied. So last week, on December 3rd, we sent an email asking why the wheelchair lift is not yet functioning nearly 2 years after the family was told it would be. And does City Schools find this acceptable? A few days later, the district replied, saying it ran into an unexpected logistical challenge that resulted in a delay. North Avenue then added, "We anticipate the lift will be fully operational on December 10th. We regret any inconvenience caused to the student and their family."
If you had an opportunity to say something to the school system, what would you say?
Do better. There's a lot of kids with disabilities, you know, and they're forced to go to other schools. It's sad.
I said, what the heck is going on? Like, I want them to get it done.
Tuesday is December 10th, the day City Schools said in its email that the wheelchair lift would be operational. On Wednesday, we'll be back with an update to this story. If the lift is not operational, we'll be going directly to North Avenue to find out why. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore. I'm Chris Pabst. Thanks for...
Do better. That's the 2 words. Do better. And I really hope this lift is operational, and by the time we air on Wednesday, they better start doing better. Otherwise, this story and this broadcast will come together in one, with common sense and this report stating y'all got to start doing better. No comments from this post. Everybody gets pissed nowadays, but the thing is, we care about people with disabilities. And by that time, when disabilities happen, we do things to help out. I mean, we have special education for disabled kids. We have special education programs. We have Special Olympics. We have to make sure stuff like this does not ever happen again with our kids. And I really hope that this ramp gets built today, which is today. And if it doesn't, then that's over $100,000 worth of our tax dollars. You got to pay us back. Saying, well, we have issues here, this, that, and the third. I mean, what kind of issues do you have? I mean, these scandals are created to fool the community and say, hey, we can do better. I mean, these scandals were created just for them to set bad examples for other school districts. Well, we're better. We're here in Flower Bluff. We lead by example. Baltimore City Schools needs to do better. Needs to be on the same page as our school district. You know, not hiding behind the truth, not sweeping everything under the carpet. What they need to do is say, do better. And if I can do better, so can you. Take accountability, take responsibility, and say, you know, we need to make this lift happen for this kid and for other kids with disabilities. And if we don't do so, we could be facing lawsuits. Trust me, I would hate to see that happening to a child. So come Wednesday, we will let you know. And if it doesn't, we'll still let you. And if it happens, we'll let you know. And if it doesn't, we'll let you know with some common sense. Next, Yorktown could even have a new road and even have a new path. There's now some great news for those who are driving in Yorktown. Take a look at this map. The reds in the area indicates under construction while the whites are open to the public. So this right here is Ulster Creek Bridge. This direction here would lead you to the bridge, to the Ulster Parkway, near this side. Down here to this side, you go up here, and here you lived on Starry Road. Krypton Drive, if you come in here. And then on this side here, you're going towards Lasso Drive or going to Carro Drive. Azale Drive. Lloyd Neal Drive, if you're going this way up here, you'll be going towards the end of Rodfield. Ginger Drive, Boulevard here, all these streets. But if you see this red here, this red side here, that means it's under construction. That could be done. But we don't know when, so the city says they're doing their best. But the question is, would it ever be done by the time the new year ends? Or, well, would more delays happen than would more delays ever happen again because of the holidays and us taxpayers are footing the bill? Here's Tony Holomir.
Things we're going to be making some traffic shifts onto temporary pavement that's been constructed.
This is the temporary lane that drivers will soon be using. Will that shut down a lane? The city says no.
Two-way traffic maintained the entire time. And in the shift, they'll be moving off of the existing pavement, the old pavement, onto new temporary pavement.
That will happen in two phases, 1A and 1C.
1A is going to be a smaller region, and that's to allow us to replace a box culvert that crosses under the roadway.
1A will affect Yorktown Boulevard between about Starry Lane and the Mud Bridge. With a nearby elementary school, I asked Edmonds how that will impact traffic to and from Creekside Elementary.
Well, we do coordinate closely with the school district when there's a school in the vicinity, and we'll do everything possible to try and accommodate any situations that they're experiencing.
And 1C will be the entire length of the project, which is between Mudbridge and Geiger Drive.
Mr. Edmonds, the people who live on the north side, those subdivisions, they're still going to be able to get out.
Everyone will still have access.
What about big picture? Edmonds says this is all part of the plan to widen Yorktown, which will be completed in the fall of 2027.
There will be two-way traffic throughout construction until it actually is open on the new lanes, in which case you'll have a four-lane boulevard cross-section.
City officials expect these specific traffic changes to last about a month. From the south side, I'm your neighborhood news reporter, Tony Jaramillo, Chris 6 News.
So 3 years. It's going to take 3 years. So there's no need to raise common sense. It's just, people are concerned. And people have a right to be concerned. No excuses. No excuses at all. Colder weather is approaching, and that means you might be prepared for some power outages. Like, with the heaters and all. I mean, we could be in for another big freeze like we did years ago. So, what does that mean when it comes to every power outage in the city? And probably in your neighborhood? Here's Michaela Chavez.
Minerva lives on the west side of Corpus Christi. She says she and her neighbors lost power last week for about 2 hours.
We're not able to cook in the kitchen or eat dinner in the table.
Her neighborhood normally doesn't get outages.
Weren't prepared for that.
But it sparked an even deeper conversation. A conversation about preparedness.
We talked about Coleman lanterns and the Coleman stove. We were thinking about, let's be prepared next time.
And with colder weather on the horizon, Minerva isn't the only one preparing.
This is probably not the coldest weather we're going to see this week. This is probably just the beginning of the winter here for South Texas, but we still have people on standby. We have crews ready and prepared to respond.
Director of Communications for AEP Texas, Omar Lopez, says the recent area outages were not weather-related, but in cases of severe weather,
we have our own team of meteorologists here at AEP, and we get daily updates from them.
They amp up their efforts.
We'll have some of those crews positioned maybe over the Harbor Bridge, maybe on the island, maybe in Port Aransas. Some of our crews live there as well as work there. We really look at where our employees are and where they can be dispatched quickly and safely.
Minerva says in the case of an outage in the winter, she's worried for her neighbors.
These houses, because they're built back in the 70s, insulation's not probably going to be all that great.
She says many don't have other options to stay warm.
Everybody uses more than likely electric type heaters, so that's another factor where people are gonna, suffer trying to stay warm. We don't want that to happen to us here.
But there are tips that you can do right now to prepare. Keep all drapes and doors closed. Follow instructions on heaters and generators you're using. Charge your phones ahead of time and layer up. AEP have crews on standby 24/7. Lopez says they can't control the weather, but they can control their response. And it starts with preparedness.
This next freeze, if we get one or a future one, that they're ready. They're absolutely ready.
And if you know it's going to be extra cold, AEP Texas advises anyone who has medical devices in home that require electricity to have a backup plan in case of an outage. With your neighborhood news in Corpus Christi, I'm Michaela Chavez, Chris 6 Sunrise.
And these are good tips to follow. You gotta be able to understand about weather. Like, we had a big freeze and I did my broadcast from my brother's house. Just getting there, surviving, saying all this, that, and the other. So when it comes to power outages, you need to be prepared. Only when the big freeze comes. That means, if the power is out, you need to find your generators. So the time comes, when that big freeze happens, get a generator. If your neighbor has an extra generator, then you can borrow his, and they can use the other one for whatever. Layer up. Double layer if you have to. But layering up is very important. And even if, for me, when it gets cold to me, I just let it drive on, If it gets too cold for me, then, I don't know what to tell you. But the bottom line here is we have to be prepared. And if we're not prepared, then we don't know. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Earlier in the broadcast, we told you we've given you an update about the incident happening at a Robstown school where a teacher was arrested. We also heard about Andrew Gonzalez, who was also arrested in the case of this vape device, this THC vape device planting thing. But let's look at the audio tapes again. Someone says those same tapes could provide proof that it was her that did it. Here's Adam Bean.
To get them to tell us who was hiding the vapes in our classroom. Hiding the vapes in our tell us who was hiding the vape, to tell us who, to get them to get them to, it was a tactic to get them to tell us who was hiding the vapes in our classroom. And so when he admitted to being a part of it, it was never.
He didn't say he admitted to being a part of it.
This was the audio recorded by Yvonne Gattaca after her son was suspended from Hamlin Middle School in March of last year. The conversation was between her and then assistant principal Amanda Corona. Gattaca confronted Corona after audio was recorded by another student where you can hear one of the district's police officers and Corona planting a vape pen inside her son's backpack. Gattaca believed her child had been wrongfully suspended, and following these recordings, Corona was put on administrative leave with pay. Now, over a year later, the former assistant principal is being charged.
That shouldn't have even been a thought. Like, they shouldn't have even, for her to say, oh, let's put it in backpack, like, no.
Chris Six spoke with Gattaca following Corona's arrest, who tells us that since the initial incident, trusting the district has become far more difficult.
So now when something happens, I'm not so quick to believe them. I'm like, well, do you have proof? Well, where's the camera? Well, show me proof because I don't believe you. And I hate that. I hate that I have to be like that now.
We also reached out to CCISD for comment regarding these recent developments. In a statement, they tell Chris Six that, quote, CCISD acts immediately to investigate any allegations of wrongdoing, and that Corona has not been employed with the district since August of last year. Amanda Corona is being charged with tampering with or fabricating physical evidence, which is a third-degree felony, and official oppression, which is a Class A misdemeanor. She was released on bail on Wednesday. Reporting on the South Side, I'm your neighborhood news reporter, Adam Beam, Chris 6 News.
That was last week. Now, this week, Andrew Gonzalez was charged with the same crime, but he bonded out of jail. There's probably not going to be a trial for those two, because they probably lost their jobs. Let's investigate this. Let's take a close look at that audio tape, because there could be some clues as to where they could have planted. So here's the first recording.
It was a tactic to get them to tell us who was hiding the vapes in our classroom. And so when he admitted to being a part of it, it was never.
He didn't say he admitted to being a part of it.
So, in this part here, who do we believe? Do we believe the principal or the victim? I have to say we believe the victim. If he did not have the vape pen, if he fessed up and say, yes, I had the vape pen, then poof, it would all be over. The parent would punish the child, this, that, the third, and then it would be suspended. So, this right here, that was just a tactic to say, let's pin this. Let's put this pin on the son of a bitch, and then we'll get him suspended. I don't care what the motherfucking police does. I don't give a shit. Now here's the second recording. That was Andrew Gonzalez who put that pen in there. This is what he said. We could always just pin it on beep. Yeah, let's just pin it on. It sounds like it's agreeing to something. Oh, let's pin it. Yeah, let's pin it. Let's pin it. Okay. I'm not gonna put it. I'm not thinking about putting it in my pants. Oh my God! There's a vape in his pocket. Gotcha, sucker. You're suspended. That's tampering with evidence right there, sucker. What is wrong with these people? You know, if this is a real fast way to get you guys in saying, well, let's just pin this and we can get this over with. I mean, the victim is the mom and the child. The perpetrators are these two, Andrew Gonzalez and Amanda Corona. It's like Mr. Potts said, they can't change the policy of the school district, but the procedures they can try to fix. And so, I think that if the parent was to sue the school district for this ever happening, then they could have a case. This could ever be a case. I mean, if I had to talk to an attorney or my service coordinator, which I might talk to about, which I'm going to talk to about this week, this could be a case. I mean, this was a case. Who would win? I believe the victim would win. And CCISD would probably settle this out of court and say, well, we can try to fix these procedures for your son, and we can get this off his record. I mean, suing somebody is not about the money. They just don't want this ever happening again. So, next time you accuse somebody, have proof. Those audio recordings are evidence. That can be used in a court of law. And let's hear to what...
That shouldn't have even been a thought. Like, they shouldn't have even, for her to say, oh, let's put it in backpack. Like, no.
I mean, this was a huddle plan to where, you know, you would plan on putting something in a backpack, you know. If I was that officer and she told me to put in the backpack, I'm like, I will not do that. That is tampering with evidence right there. I don't care what you do. I will resign if that ever happens. And you will go to jail. Every school district needs to follow the law. Laws are different than the laws that you serve your country for. School laws are very different because there are federal laws, city ordinances, and state laws. So let's hear from the parent.
Now when something happens, I'm not so quick to believe them. I'm like, well, do you have proof? Well, where's the camera? Well, show me proof because I don't believe you. And I hate that. I hate that I have to be like that now.
I have to side with the mother, you know. Every mother would defend their child. If the mom believes the child says, I did not have that vape. And, you know, the mom would believe the child, right? I mean, did you ever have that vape? No. Did someone else have the vape? Yes. Who was it? And then they would help out the friend, you know. They would not snitch. They don't have to snitch on the friend. They would help them out and say, well, hey, I'm not going to snitch on you. We're going to help you. We're going to help you out. But helping somebody out, I mean, if you help somebody out, I mean, you can prove yourself, you can prove your innocence. But the recording devices, those are key pieces of evidence like we talked about. So, when you're dealing with a case of, you know, false, you know, tampering with evidence, that's against state law. Not just as a school official, but as an officer. A school district officer. I mean, you upheld your law to the letter. So, in this case here, I'm going to side with the mom and the child. I'm going to side with the victims. They did the right thing. And I believe they're right. Now, if the principal were to come forward and tell her side of the story to Channel 6 or to Channel 3, we'll keep you posted on this. That officer is Andrew Gonzalez. He's charged with the same thing as, so to give you a quick recap here, the assistant principal is charged with tampering with evidence, as well as Andrew Gonzalez, the officer. Gonzalez bonded out of jail while Corona has bailed out of jail. It could not be a conviction, it could not be a trial, but we'll keep following this story, and on a future Give Me a Break, we'll let you know what happens. So, it's really something to look at, because when you're dealing with a case of tampering with evidence, and falsely accusing somebody, an apology needs to be set. And I hope that when, they come face to face with each other somewhere, they can sit there, have a cup of coffee, and say, you know what, I was wrong. I was wrong to do this years ago. Yeah. I deeply regret what happened. I'm very sorry. And it'll be up to the victims to accept the apology or file a restraining order, depending on this on the old scale. I'll be right back. Hey, stop right there. Hey, Mom, stop right there. You let your child walk alone without holding the hand? You're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, including the scheduled court of law. You have the right to remain an attorney. If you don't have an attorney, will be appointed for you. Do you understand these rights? Yes, sir. I understand. It happens. Could you ever imagine being arrested for letting your child walk alone? So the question is, this happened weeks ago. A Georgia mom was arrested for letting a child walk alone. What's a bad example of bad parenting? Do we need state laws that say, a child should not walk?
What terrible thing as a parent.
I'm going to let John Stossel explain. Here's John Stossel.
What terrible thing does a parent need to do to a child to get arrested?
Put your hands behind your back for me.
Okay. This woman's being handcuffed, and soon she'll be taken to jail. Why? She told her son, get out of the car and walk home. Here he is, 8-year-old Aiden. His parents encourage him to play outside on his own to build independence. But one day, after karate practice, he misbehaved in the car, and his mom told him, walk the final half-mile home by yourself. He started to, but then one woman was shocked to see him walking.
There's a little boy walking down the sidewalk.
She called the cops.
He's a perfect target for somebody to kidnap. Officers are on the way.
The police put Aiden in the back of their car.
Why are you walking by yourself?
My mom thought I needed exercise.
The police took Aiden home and asked his mom if having him walk home was reasonable.
Does that sound reasonable to you?
For him, it does.
I see huge issues.
Later, his parents told me about it. How far away from home?
It was half a mile.
So you weren't worried about him?
Not
It's a safe neighborhood. In fact, their city ranks among the safest in Texas. But the police officer says, not safe enough.
To have an 8-year-old get out of the car and walk by himself, that's a big problem. Okay, because we don't know who's in that white van.
Does he have a point? No, says Lenore Skenazy.
99.999% repeating of white vans are guys coming to fix your toilet, right? Or guys coming to mow your lawn.
Skenazy's the author of Free Range Kids. She points out that ignorant media mislead us about what's dangerous.
460,000 kids are reported missing every single year.
460,000 children are late for dinner. stayed at school and forgot to tell their mom, stopped to pet a dog. The definition of missing is anybody who has been missing for an hour.
Kidnappings by strangers are extremely rare. Just being in a car is 400 times more dangerous.
You don't see people saying, oh, I could put Johnny in the car, but what if we're T-boned? I wouldn't forgive myself. What if there's a drunk driver? I just won't do it. But people do that when they think about their kid going outside. So here's a kid able to be outside in the fresh air in his boring neighborhood, walking home, and somebody thinks that's so dangerous that they call 911. What's dangerous is that we've come up with a culture that sees a kid outside and fantasizes not just something bad, but the very worst case scenario.
The media do focus on worst cases.
Police say this is a cautionary tale. Keep your kids close. Don't be on your phones when you're out in public with them. Don't have them walking behind you.
They sound like the cop who lectured Heather.
You have a lot of crazy people out here. I don't trust my child with out of range about 20 or 30 feet from him.
It was a lot of his opinion.
But police officers can act on their opinions.
You may end up going to jail.
Okay.
For endangering a child.
Okay.
So that being said, put your hands behind your back for me.
Okay.
He's saying, well, I could put you in cuffs. And then he does put you in cuffs.
I just figured they'd just question me and let me go.
But they jailed her and kept her there overnight.
It was terrifying. I was just waiting, crying.
The next day, her husband was allowed to bail her out. But the government wasn't done with her. Prosecutors indicted her for placing her child in imminent danger of death and acting against the peace and dignity of the state. Heather pled guilty. Why did you plead guilty?
It was a minimum 2 years because it was a state felony charge. So I couldn't risk that for my family.
2 years minimum. Also,
our lawyers, they were going to charge us another $7,000 to go to court.
As part of her plea, she had to write this groveling letter, admitting she was wrong.
It was really difficult to say the words, I should not have taken my eyes off of him, when in my heart I knew that he was perfectly safe and capable.
Then, because she'd been charged with a felony, her employer fired her. Aiden's still upset about what the prosecutors and cops did.
What they said is stupid because, like, it's a real safe neighborhood and kids play all the time.
He's like, I can walk home by myself.
When I was a kid, I walked alone often. So did Heather.
I remember very clearly at 7 or 8, walking to Target with a friend.
The new fear of kidnappings is not just an American thing. This map from a British newspaper shows the shrinking ranges of freedom over the past 60 years. Great-grandfather walked 6 miles when he was a child. His son, just 1 mile. His grandson isn't even allowed past the edge of the street. People think that's reasonable because we're told kidnappings and crime are up. Life's too dangerous now. But it's not true. Crime is not up. It's down sharply from 30 years ago.
It's not less safe now. It's more safe.
So you will drop your kid off if this happens again?
No, we're scared.
We're scared. It's not that we don't think it was the right decision, but what they decided for us was not very affordable.
We can't go through that again.
Has it changed the way you parent now?
We don't even leave them in the car to go into the convenience store.
Not because someone's going to take them, but because someone's going to see and call the police.
It's sad that some people think a child walking home is something to call the police about.
Let's make sure that simply trusting your kid in the world, knowing that independence is good for your kid, is not considered a crime.
Skenazy has persuaded these 8 states to pass childhood independence laws. Those clarify that letting kids do things on their own isn't abuse.
Right or left, it doesn't matter. You realize you don't want the government telling you when you can let your kids do things because you know their children better than they do.
In a few weeks, I'll air more from Lenore Skenazy about how free-range parenting leads to healthy kids and healthier parents, too. To get that video, subscribe below.
And, in a few weeks, probably this week, we'll talk about free-range parenting. Should it be a good thing or a bad thing? We'll also look at laws that do help, that ban these things.
You let your 9-year, would you?
But it's like, you know, I'm going to give you a sneak preview of what we got coming up for you this week. So, this Free-Range Parenting, a Mom's Guide to Raising Independent Kids, we'll give you a sneak preview. So, here's that sneak preview.
Would you let your 9-year-old child ride the New York City subway alone? This mom, Lenore Skenazy, did. People called her America's worst mom. Dr. Phil complained that she let her son ride the subway with
molesters, cyber-stalking, predators, drugs, bullies.
People gave you grief.
Yes, they did.
Take the G train, then the J to Manhattan, 2 blocks up and 1 over. I know, Ma.
Law and Order even did this episode where that child riding alone is killed.
The construction site where he was recovered is where he was killed.
If I didn't think it was safe, I wouldn't have done it.
That's coming up this week. Maybe we'll do that on a Friday. But now something I promised you, which we'll do that. We'll do that in just a little bit. But first, safe, juicy, and illegal? States are banning lab-grown meat. How that limits our freedom and harms. How does that limit our freedom and harms the animals? It's like, do you decide what you eat, or does the government? Here again, John Stossel.
Lab-grown meat has arrived in this country.
Would you ever eat lab-grown meat?
Lab-grown meat? What's that? I thought this was meat. Or this. Or this. But no, I'm wrong to assume that. Meat is now being grown in labs. To make it, they use a syringe to pull tissue out of an animal.
The tissue is cut into minuscule pieces to separate the muscle fibers and cells. The cells start dividing. When all these little pieces of muscle are layered together, we get exactly the same thing we started with: beef.
But is it safe? Well, U.S. regulators have approved it.
2 cultivated meat producers now getting the green light to begin commercially selling their chicken.
Take your fake lab-grown meat elsewhere. We're not doing that in the state of Florida.
Florida and Alabama quickly outlawed lab-grown meat.
And we appreciate that ban.
Bill Ballard lobbies for cattlemen.
It's a recognition of the importance of preserving the family farm structure of agriculture in the United States. And if it weren't for Alabama and Florida doing it, then the meat packers would have the ability to pass it off to unsuspecting consumers as if it were indeed a meat product, which it is not.
They don't conceal it. They say this is cultivated meat.
It is, but they haven't told the public exactly what's in it.
They pull it out of the animal and grow it in the lab. It's still the same source,
but not produced in the same manner.
How do you grow meat in the lab?
Some activists oppose it too, making videos like this.
We use something called immortalized cells, meaning they grow like a tumor. Want to taste it?
I think I'll pass.
Now lobbyists are persuading politicians in other states to ban lab-grown meat.
Lab-grown meat has no place in Nebraska. That's according to Governor Pillen.
But wait, why do politicians get to decide for everyone? I got a producer of lab-grown chicken to let me try some. Their employees sauteed it, and I tried it.
This is what Florida banned, and we viewed as...
This is 99% chicken.
Melissa Musiker works for Upside Foods, one of 2 companies producing lab-grown chicken. Upside sued Florida over its ban.
One of these is chicken, and another is lab-grown chicken.
I offered people a taste of what Florida's agriculture commissioner calls frankenmeat versus chicken we bought at Whole Foods.
They're both really good. I think that one's lab-grown.
Here we go. People correctly guessed which was which.
That's the real one, and that's the lab-grown.
This one was juicier. I assume this is the lab-grown one?
It was. People liked the lab-grown chicken.
That's much juicier.
This is moist and tasty.
Although everyone in our test could tell the difference in this taste test of a different lab-grown chicken, this food critic couldn't.
I was so sure that this is the real chicken.
All this raises the question, why not let us consumers decide? Why are you bribing politicians to ban it?
The government has a legitimate role in ensuring that we have an abundant and affordable and safe food supply. You can't say that about this lab-grown meat.
Lab-grown beef would make the food supply more secure because you'd have another choice.
You should not be able to make that decision when you know that the decision will have the effect of threatening the viability of our food production.
You could have said this about horse-drawn carriages years ago. Ban cars.
There are sacrifices to be made with progress, but one sacrifice we cannot make is the ability to maintain a viable food production system.
I don't buy his logic. Allowing an extra option would make our food supply more resistant to disruption.
We can make the equivalent of millions of chickens, and we only produce the edible product of the chickens. There's no beaks, there's no feet, there's no feathers.
And no animals are killed.
Chicken meat production is sadly a story of suffering.
That's one reason a lot of people eschew eating animal protein, and they say, I don't want to eat that anymore because it makes me feel uncomfortable. This can be a really attractive product for people like them because this is a way for them to say, like, literally vote with their plate.
Would you buy laboratory-grown food?
Yeah, I liked it.
We should have the freedom to vote with our dollars, decide for ourselves if lab-grown meat or lab-grown anything is something we want. Maybe we won't like it, then we won't buy it. But it's wrong when politicians forbid us to try something. I think Americans deserve more choices. It's the reason I started Stossel TV, to give you alternatives.
Everybody has a choice. Use common sense here. Don't let the politicians decide. Let us decide. The taxpayers. We pay the taxes. Politicians don't. Our freedom is bought by the men and women that serve our country. There's no if and but excuse about it. And Florida does not want to give people choice. All they want to do is just, be picky. Picky Florida. That's all I gotta say. That's all for this edition of Give Me a Break Monday going to Tuesday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Wednesday. For all of us here at YouTube at Give Me a Break, stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. Your body, your choice. And it's your right with your choice. Good night.